Hi, 8th grade. This is the lecture presentation for chapters 3 to 4 of The Outsiders. We've already done this for chapters 1 and 2, so you should already know what to do, so I'm not going to waste any time, just going to jump right into it. As I mentioned in the last video, make sure you take notes, take screenshots, whatever it is you need on each of the sections that we're going to be covering in this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and begin with the summary of Chapter 3, important things you need to know about Chapter 3. Chapter 3 opens with Ponyboy, Johnny, and 2-Bit walking alongside Cherry and Marcia, the two girls from the drive-in movie theater. Cherry and Pony kind of lay back and talk about Pony's brothers. When discussing Derry, Pony says that he thinks that Derry doesn't like him and that he wishes that he would go away. The other boys are very surprised to hear this. Now, when discussing Soda Pop, Pony just shares a little bit of background information about Soda's prized old horse, Mickey Mouse. They discuss the differences, quote unquote, between the Socias and the Greasers, realizing that they actually have a lot in common. The biggest alleged difference between the two gangs is that Greasers are more emotional and Socias never reveal their emotions. Now, things seem to be going smoothly up until a blue Mustang pulls up with two Socias inside, Randy and Bob, two new characters. Ponyboy immediately notices Bob's rings and realizes that he's probably the one who beat up Johnny badly. The girls convince the boys to leave rather than fight. Cherry also tells Ponyboy that she doesn't want to see Dally again, not because he was so mean to her at the drive-in movie, but because she thinks, that should be the word thinks, sorry about that typo there, she thinks that she may fall in love with him. So this reveals a little bit more about Cherry's character, and that's why I wrote here Cherry's character development. Cherry reveals through this sentiment that though she's level-headed and rational in thought, she has this trait that seems drawn in by Dally's brash and rude personality. So even though he was very rude to her and the other girl, Marcia, she's still drawn into, liking him and, this fear that, she may fall in love with him, whether that's, extreme or not extreme at this date. Ponyboy gets home later that night, and Derry is very angry that he's coming home so late. After a brief argument, Derry slaps Ponyboy, which sends him running out of the house in anger because he now has, proof, quote unquote, that Derry hates him. Pony finds Johnny in the park and shares what happened with him. Johnny shares that he is also abused by his father. The two walk through the park discussing whether or not they should run away from home altogether. And that concludes Chapter 3. Moving now into Chapter 4. While walking in the park in the middle of the night, the blue Mustang again shows up, and 5 Socias, now also drunk at the time, surround Johnny and Ponyboy. One Soch grabs Ponyboy and holds his head underwater in the fountain. Ponyboy soon loses consciousness. However, later on, when he wakes up, he sees Bob's bloodied body lying nearby, and Johnny reveals that he stabbed him with a switchblade in the middle of the fight to go ahead and save Ponyboy. This concludes Bob's life in the story. Bob is now dead. Ponyboy starts to panic knowing that they are now in the center of a murder, of a homicide. After trying to rationally reason with what has taken place, the two boys decide to go see Dally for help. To help the boys, Dally gives them $50, clothing, and a gun. He tells them to take the train to a place called Windrixville. He explains how to find an abandoned church and tells them to stay there. Pony and Johnny board the train and follow Dally's instructions to the T. They finally make it to the church, where they fall asleep. Let's go ahead and now go over some analysis notes through these chapters. Again, just like the last video, it's very important that you pay attention to these next several slides. So let's talk about the symbolism of the blue Mustang. The blue Mustang is a symbol of class division. It's symbolic of the economic inequality between the Socias and the Greasers. Whenever the Mustang is present in the plot of the book, there is always conflict that follows. Both times in these sets of 2 chapters, there was conflict that erupted between the Socias and the Greasers every time the blue Mustang made an appearance. This shows that the economic gap is a major source of conflict between both groups. The car also shows the Socias' wealth, while the greasers' consistent traveling by foot and vulnerability to attacks shows their poverty. So the fact that the Socs have this car shows that they're wealth. The greasers travel by foot shows the fact that they're not so wealthy. You see how this is a symbol of the, again, inequality on economic terms, and the conflict that usually erupts because of this economic gap. Moving on to the symbolism of Bob's rings, and this was actually part of a test question. Simply put, Bob's rings are also a symbol of the economic inequality present between both gangs. Socs can afford things like jewelry, but to take it a step further, the rings also symbolize how wealth, in the case of the rings, how wealth can be used as a weapon. The rings have like these, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. The rings, are beautiful on one side, but on the other hand, they're sharp enough that they can be used as a weapon, especially in the case when they were used by Bob up against Johnny that one time that's referenced in the book. Continuing symbolism with hair. The greasers' hair is symbolic in that it represents the greasers as a unified group. The greasers can't afford to represent themselves the way Socs do with cars, jewelry, etc. So they use their hair as an identifying symbol. And we've talked a lot about the presence of hair in the novel, as Ponyboy talks about it, especially at the beginning of the book. There was also an exam question here about this one when it relates to appearance. And a lot of you guys, acknowledge that hair is an important defining feature of the greasers. They allow hair to become a definition to their identity. All right, moving on to some of the themes in these chapters. One theme that we can talk about is morality. What is moral and what is immoral, especially as it pertains to the fountain/park scene. While Johnny has committed the terrible act of murder, he did so to save his friend. So it really brings morality into question. If Johnny had not attacked Bob, there was a large possibility that Ponyboy would have been drowned in the fountain. Although Johnny's actions are by definition corrupt and sinful, one can argue that his values remain intact because his intentions were honorable. Maybe we could have a little debate/argument about that question. Moving on to a theme on appearances. This was a test question. A lot of you guys, again, talked about hair and clothing, but I was thinking a little bit more in general terms. So let's go ahead and go over that. The greasers place a large value of importance on how they appear to the Socs, not just in terms of dress and appearance, but also in terms of their actions when they're around. For instance, when the Socs pull up in their Mustang, it tells us in the book that Two-Bit, quote unquote, took a long drag on his cigarette, Johnny slouched and hooked his thumbs in his pockets, and I, referring to Ponyboy, stiffened. Ponyboy also states that they, quote unquote, can look meaner than anything. Looking tough comes in handy. The greasers want to appear tough as a form of protection. Appearance doesn't just become a definition of identity. Appearance becomes a form of protection, especially to the greasers. And concluding our analysis notes with a little bit of characterization on Ponyboy. We get a different side of Ponyboy in these chapters, where we truly see Ponyboy thinking about and contemplating the idea that the Socs and the greasers are actually not as different as they appear to be. I love this quote. We've talked about it in the exam. I'd be sure to highlight this quote in your book. Maybe the two different worlds we lived in weren't so different. We saw the same sunset. So it's the idea that, two different sides, two different gangs, living in the same universe, could possibly coexist with one another, and the possibility that they're actually not that different from each other. We've actually been able to pull together a similar analysis when we talked about World War II in our study of the Holocaust, especially when we watched The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, how, you had these two children living on two completely, seemingly different worlds, yet in fact, it was a shared world. It was this fact that, they lived so near each other, they lived in the same world, they're not as different as they appear to be. Alright, let's go ahead and conclude this video by going over the activity guide for chapters 3 and 4. Starting off with the vocabulary, which was a scramble section. Number 1 was answered for you, so number 2, I'm just going to jump into number 2. Number 2, iniqua, scrambles to winced, as in the sentence, Ben winced in pain when he tried to move his broken leg. Number 3, Lanlegdgl, gallantly, the knight gallantly rescued the princess from the dragon. Number 4, Smither, scrambles to hermits. The Jewish exile caused many to move to the Western Hemisphere and live as hermits. Number 5, Eniror, is ornery scrambled. Maria had an ornery attitude, and many did not like that she always seemed to be in a bad mood. Number 6, what everyone thought was IDAC is actually LDAC. It's not acid. It scrambles to clad. Clad meaning clothed. Chelsea felt she did not fit in while at the beach, clad in jeans, boots, and a sweater. Number 7, Selafossen, aloofness. Many misanthropes, people who dislike other people, tend to live happier lives when in a state of aloofness. And number 8, Usglekni, unceasingly. It unceasingly rained last Saturday, which forced us to cancel the barbecue. Going now into section 2, answer to question. A lot of you did very well on this section. Question number 1 was answered for you. Number 2, I like this because it's kind of like a little Jeopardy style question, Jeopardy style section. I don't know if you guys got the same impression. That was my goal. Maybe go ahead and let me know in a private message if you really felt you were playing the game Jeopardy while working on this section. So question number 2, answer number 2, I should say. He finds Derry angrily waiting for him and an argument breaks out. The question that goes with that should have been something along the lines of, what does Ponyboy find when he returns home late at night? Answer number 3, because Derry slapped him. The question should be, why does Ponyboy run away from home? Number 4, Mickey Mouse. What was the name of Soda Pop's old horse? Number 5, because it is at these times that he feels like his father knows he is there. This was the question that the majority of you got wrong. Why does Johnny have a positive reaction towards his father hitting him? It's a very minor detail in the readings, but you could go ahead and catch it from the book in the text. Number 6, it started with a Soch shoving Ponyboy's face into the fountain. Question to go with that is, how did the fight between Ponyboy, Johnny, and the Soch start? Number 7, a knife. With what did Johnny kill Bob? And number 8, to take a train to Windrixville and hide out in the abandoned church there. What does Dally tell Ponyboy and Johnny to do after the park incident? Note that even though their names sound very similar, guys, please do not get Dally and Derry confused. One's a double L, one's a double R. Very different characters, however. Please do not get Dally and Derry confused moving forward from this point. Finally, literary devices. We're not going to be going over the characteristic, but I will honorably mention several of you, pretty much the whole class, did an awesome job with the characteristics. Even though finding Y, an adjective with a Y for a lot of those names like Ponyboy, or Derry, or Dally, or Cherry, or even Johnny, is very challenging to find adjectives starting with a Y, but still you guys managed to do a very good job in section 4. So we're just going to go ahead and close off here with section 3, literary devices. Number 1 asked, find 2 examples of person v person, aka man v man conflict in these chapters. Sample answers will include the greasers versus the Sochas. That's more of an example of like men v men or people v people, I would say, because it's not just one person and one person, it's gang v gang. Johnny versus the Sochas / Bob, that flashback that is alluded to earlier in the chapters. Ponyboy and Johnny v the Sochas, which we see at in chapter 4, and even Ponyboy v Derry, which is what causes Ponyboy to run away. You can go ahead and say as a form of man v man. Also, which is not listed here because the father is a minor character, you could even go on ahead and say that the same way we're putting Ponyboy v Derry, you could even say Johnny v his own father would be a form of man v man conflict. Now, the trickier one was identifying person v society, man v society in these chapters. And I have two answers that would have been very good answers to provide. Johnny and Ponyboy versus the law. After the park incident, and they are pinned up between the illegality of what has happened and their own attempt taken towards self-preservation. The boys know that they've committed a crime. Rather, one has committed a crime, the other one is an accomplice to the crime and accessory to the fact. They have to escape from the law, they have to escape from justice and escape from society, knowing that it is illegal, but all in the name of preserving their lives, all in the name of preserving their safety and staying out of harm's way. And then even on a separate note, you could actually group the greasers and the socias together in saying person v society is the greasers and the socias versus the rest of the world. One can argue that whether you're a greaser or whether you're a socia in this book, being part of any gang comes with a separation slash exclusion from the rest of society. I guess you could say that they are all, at the end of the day, outsiders. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions about the material that was just gone over in this video, feel free to look back at it many times you need to. Hope you took notes on the video, take screenshots. If you have any specific questions about any of these materials, feel free to go ahead and send me a message on Classcraft. Remember to slap the like button at the bottom of this video and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Guys, thank you so much. God bless and adios for today.